Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to the 4th episode of Concise Conversations with Kathy and Jackie. We are so happy you were able to join us today. Today's guest, not wasting any time, is Khristie Goodwin from Oxford City Schools. We are so happy to have her with us and welcome her today to the show. So with that, I'm going to step into the background as usual and kick it over to Kathy.
Thank you, Dakota. Khristie, we are so delighted that you're our guest today, and you look beautiful outside. You know, we've had that long-standing relationship with Oxford City, and Jackie and I are both looking forward to talking to you today. The purpose of Concise Conversations is to connect with our network members, to bring them information, and also some good news and good cheer. So, Jackie, why don't you kick us off with the first question?
Okay, thank you, Kathy. And I want to add to Kathy's welcome and Dakota's, my own Khristie. It's really fun to have you with us. And I know how hard you have planned in Oxford, not just leading up to the current learning as it is, but throughout making adjustments. I've been particularly interested, Khristie, in the fairy tale metaphors that you've used as you have planned to balance the synchronous with the asynchronous, the social emotional with the academic. And I wonder if you'd share with our audience your thinking behind Snow White and Goldilocks.
I surely will. And first, let me just say thank you for having us here today. We're very delighted to be here and to share our story. We do kind of think about the fairy tales, Snow White and Goldilocks. The first one being Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. Thinking about our teachers as Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs as the varied students that they have in their class with varied personalities and varied needs. And our teachers have done such a great job of sharing that caring personality. They've done the parades, they have called, they have sent emails, they have sent personal messages, and our teachers have just done a fabulous job of displaying the characteristics of Snow White with that loving and caring personality. So first of all, we want to focus on that social emotional learning to connect to our students.
So you've explained Snow White, but I'm curious about Goldilocks, and I saw the bowls that look like bowls of porridge. Can you say more about that, Khristie?
I surely can. The first week, as we adventured into this remote learning, it appeared that we were really trying to kind of fit the traditional school into that remote experience. So we were doing a lot of live experiences every day with a lot of hours. So our first chunk of lessons we experienced, you know, that might be just a little too much. And then we kind of backed off on that and we moved into more of more independent learning. And we thought, well, maybe there was not enough live and remote connections with our students. So I think as we have progressed through this experience the last couple of weeks, we have found that right balance. Our teachers have really done a fabulous job of looking at the independent evidence of the students and using that to target the students and their needs, and then connecting the social emotional pieces, but also those small group and individualized needs. So it's kind of that Goldilocks principle there. And they have done such an outstanding job and just had a very positive outlook and experience. And our students have done such a good job as we've learned through that process.
You know, Khristie, that doesn't surprise me at all, knowing the commitment and just the caring professionals you have across all of your schools in Oxford. But I think that willingness to be flexible and adjust in view of feedback you're receiving as you move through this, really, I'm sure has made a huge difference to your families and to your students. So what can you say a little bit more about the primary uses that then you are now making of the live, and maybe as to what kind of choices you may afford students between the live and the more asynchronous approaches?
Absolutely. So there are some examples there's many examples, and one of the things that we have all focused on as an Oxford family is that flexibility and choice. And so, again, kind of like the Seven Dwarfs, some of our students are not comfortable in a whole group live situation. So our teachers have really listened to those students, and they may meet individually with a student for 5 or 10 minutes, or during their office hours, or they may meet in a small group. And then there are some situations that they may do a whole group class activity where maybe a student is not comfortable with responding, but they're there to participate and listen. And so a lot of choice there. And then also at the teacher level, whether the teacher wants to use Zoom, Google, Seesaw, any type of learning management system, we have really tried to afford teachers that choice as well in what they feel comfortable with when they're going live with students. I think the independent learning piece, when they're submitting work through a learning management system, or whether they're doing independent work on one of our learning management systems that has built-in curriculum and assessment, and watching those reports really carefully so that they know how to wisely use that time when they are in that synchronous situation or that live situation. That has been very impressive to me, as our principals, our instructional partners have supported those teachers, and the teachers have interacted to kind of figure it out as we have gone along through this experience.
Khristie, it seems like we've been remote teaching and distance learning forever, but it happened so quickly. We had 1 week, and then the next week, the world changed, and everyone had to rise to the occasion. And it sounds like your teachers, your principals, your instructional partners, and the central office really rose to the occasion. Last night, I was listening to a webinar. It was a discussion between Jim Knight and Joellen Killian, and it was just a wonderful conversation. And you can get it on Jim's instructional coaching group. But Joellen reminded us during this time, we need to think about 2 important words: grace and forgiveness. And so thinking about the lessons learned and what you're learning now from the week that you all went, you've already talked a little bit about too much sitting in front of a computer, but what other lessons have you learned that you might share with the folks that are listening in?
I think one of the things that we have all done together is like you described, is give grace to one another. And I think that everyone, from the superintendent to the principal, to the teacher, to the custodian, to the bus driver, just being flexible and realizing that this is all new to us and that we're all going to make mistakes. I think that flexibility has been imperative. And then also the celebrating the little things. Mm-hmm. I think that has been the biggest learning, is just celebrating one another and laughing at our mistakes, or, just moving through them and just overcoming those, difficulties together and being positive with each other. I think, just looking back on this is just relaxing and celebrating. Celebrating those little things has just been one of the most important things through this process.
Well, I know you do have a strong community in Oxford, and really a very, very, I think, planned and successful approach to teachers planning collaboratively, to schools building communities of learners. I'm curious as to the extent to which teachers have been able to continue some of that collaborative planning and to continue that kind of strong building of classroom community that I've seen in Oxford.
Well, that is one of the things that I think I'm also proud of is we, as adults, have had those weekly check-ins with one another in small groups, in large groups, and those various groups. And I think the teachers being able to interact with one another in a district-wide grade level meeting once a week or in small grade level teams, you know, kind of later in the week, and just having those check-ins with one another to laugh, again, you know, kind of laugh at those mistakes, tell each other what we've learned this week, and then make those adjustments kind of on the fly. And then again, as you have said, the community piece. Our parents and our city government have all worked together. The police department, the fire department. I mean, we have all worked together, you know, sharing hand sanitizer and masks and then ideas. And it's just been a very exhilarating experience despite, you know, some of the hardships that we're seeing with health situations across the state. It's brought our community and our school system together, I think.
Well, you know, building community, it's always nice to see silver linings coming out of really horrible, unknown things. So as we think about moving to our new normal, Khristie, what do you think when we're finally able to gather together again? What will be some of the things you'll bring forward? How might you think about blended learning, or some of the strategies that you've had to use now just out of necessity?
Right. Well, I definitely think that periodic, a very much blended approach using the technology for efficiency, for communication, for those weekly check-ins. I think those are things that the adults, social media to communicate to our parents. I think that would be something that is much more regular for us. And then I think probably the most profound piece is a strong balance of that independent work and releasing students. We have been working with leaders of their own learning for several years, as you know, and the students that have been the most successful in this blended environment are those students who have mastered those skills of leaders that are embedded in the leaders of their own learning. We also have worked with, you know, quality questioning, and we've been able to continue our work with the questioning. And I think the efficiency of asking those good questions, where when you're in a face-to-face environment, you may ask 5 or 6 questions, where when you're in technology, using technology, you've got to be very intentional and precise about 1 or 2 focus questions, because you do not have as much time in that dialogical kind of environment. So, and then the substitution pieces, you know, how can you use that discussion board when you're not in front of one another? So I think many of us just being kind of forced to practice some of these different collaborative tools, I think that we will carry those into the classroom.
Well, that's very exciting, Christine. Of course, you know, I love to hear teacher intentionality in planning those few questions to drive instruction. And I had thought that perhaps this would be a time when there could be a focus on fewer power quality. You know, I think I've heard you say throughout all of this, there has been a guiding philosophy that has enabled y'all to kind of stay true north in Oxford. And I know this philosophy really comes from the top, from your superintendent. So I wonder if you could speak to that kind of charge that Dr. Goodwin provided early on, and that has kind of been the principle you could all look to.
Yes. So the slide that you're seeing in front of us was kind of the initial kickoff. The first day that we began our remote learning, we had a district-wide Zoom meeting, and Dr. Goodwin shared with our groups, to be flexible, don't stress out, just use this time to learn, be focused on our students. And many times this slide showed up throughout those weekly checkpoint meetings. Our principals, every employee embraced kind of this vision during this time. And I think it really helped to guide and help us to remember, we are here for the kids. We don't need to be stressed out, and we need to be flexible during this situation. And I do believe that we've learned various technological skills along the way.
Khristie, it's just amazing how quickly 15 minutes just
Right.
rushes by. I think thinking about the takeaway, I heard words like flexibility, choice, and grace. And I also think what I've heard you say is high expectations that you hold for yourself, for others, and for students. So thank you for being with us today.
Oh, thank you.
We so enjoyed this dialogue.
We enjoyed
And we'll
it
look
as well.
forward to the time that we can actually be back together face to face. So back to you, Dakota.
Thank you, Khristie.
Bye.
Dakota, you're on mute.
I just realized that. I apologize, everybody.
Speaking of technology.
Yeah, we technical difficulties. So we are a little bit over time, but I think that's acceptable considering what a great conversation that was. So next week's guest is Jeremy Von Egmond from Pike Road Elementary School. So tune in next week at 1 o'clock with Concise Conversations with Kathy and Jackie. Same time, same place. And if you would like to request a topic or be a guest, just email me at dakota@aplusala.org. So we hope to see you next week. Hope y'all have a great weekend. Bye.
Thank you again, Khristie.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.